Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh Bashem El Shai Bashem Rakah Kodash, the exclusive names of the Heavenly Father and His beloved Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit. The exclusive names given to the members of GMS from the top on down. Anyway, I'm going to entitle this video Understanding Colossians 2 verse 16 and Galatians 3. And we'll read the first 3 verses. I don't have it pulled up, and I'm not going to go into this because I'm getting ready. I got to do something. So this is a video that was put up 2 years. This has to be more than 2 years ago. We're talking maybe 10 years ago or more. So it's entitled The Israelites Explaining Colossians 2 verse 16. It doesn't go into Galatians 3 like the first 2-3 verses. So this is what he said it meant. And so I'll come back and I'll come back and do another video on it. I'm just putting this out there. This is fair use, fair use, fair use. So what say you? Is this individual correct or not? What is the true understanding of Colossians 2 verse 16 and Galatians 3 verse, let's say verse 1 to 3. Really, I should say the whole 3rd chapter of Galatians, because that's a heavy, and I got to go into that anyway. That's a heavy chapter. So I'm going to let you listen, then I'm going to close, because I got to step out. So listen up.
Days. So now, the average Christian reads that and goes, see there? We can eat pork, that's what it's talking about. We can drink alcohol, that's what it's talking about.
Let no man therefore judge or of the Sabbath days, you in meat or in drink. Colossians 2:16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ.
Read the verse again.
Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of a holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days.
So now, the average Christian reads that and goes, see there? We can eat pork, that's what it's talking about, meat. We can drink alcohol, that's what it's talking about, drink. No, it says we can't. They say we can't. Then it says, holy day, you don't got to keep none of God's holy days. You ain't got to keep the new moons or the Sabbath days. When it says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days, what is Paul talking about? Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand.
You should have read on, and it was said, which is a shadow of things to come. So I'm not going to say what it means. I want y'all to come on here, and or do your videos explaining what it means.
Oh, good. I got a lot of hands up. Let me, Uriah. These are must-know scriptures. Must know.
The offerings.
The offerings. What precept would you go to?
Ezekiel 45:17.
Very good. Officer Leon. Ezekiel.
Okay, so he said the offerings. In other words, you got to keep the Sabbath. You got to keep the new moon. You got to keep these different high holy days and so forth. But he said it's talking about the sacrificial part, because the sacrificial part is going to be done away with. But now if he had read on, it says, which is a shadow of things to come. What did Paul mean when he said, which is a shadow of things to come? He said he was talking about the kingdom, and he was talking to the people of Colossians, the Colossus, and they were Israelites that knew that they were Israelites, and they were Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites. They were likened unto Cornelius, whose parents obviously raised him as not being an Israelite, but he found out that, yes, I'm an Israelite. I look like these people, and he did further research, and he said, I'm definitely an Israelite, and he also followed the Messiah. So the people of Colossus, the same way. You had Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites. They had to come into the fold. So Paul was saying, don't let these Jews tell you you got to keep all these high holy days, because it's something to come in the future. So if Bishop Nate is saying that it's talking about the sacrificial part, well, then that means we're going to go back to the sacrificial part in the kingdom, the sin offerings and drink offerings, which we are going to do. We're not going to do any sin offerings on ourselves because we're not going to sin. But when you have the high holy day, when you go through the procedure of Passover with the lamb, well, that's when you killing the lamb, and when you preparing for it. That's a ceremony, which is a sacrifice. So we are going to be sacrificing animals, but we're not going to be sacrificing for sin. So that's what the Apostle Paul meant. He said, don't let them throw them laws on you. Don't let them bog you down with all those laws, because you got to learn of Yahweh Shai. Even Peter said that. Well, Galatians, the Apostle Paul said pretty much the same thing that he told the Israelites in a Gentile state of mind, coming out of that darkness into the light. So Galatians chapter 3, verse 1, the first 3 verses, I'm not going to go to it. It speaks of, then again, I might just go to it. It speaks of, the Apostle Paul calls the Galatians, oh foolish Galatians. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to it. The Apostle Peter in Acts 15, he said that was a yoke that you put all the laws on him. Now, if you were born as an Israelite, you're required to keep the laws. The Israelites that came in back into the fold, it wasn't required to keep all the laws, but they had to keep some of them. And as they grew, they began to keep more laws. Okay. So where did I say I was going to go? Okay, Galatians. Now, it was either, I don't know if they were deacons, or Captain Isaac or Captain Joel. It was one of them, because to me they looked like they could be brothers, not twin brothers, but they looked like they can. So I get him confused. They were out there at a church. You had a bunch of Jakes. I forget what church they went to, but you had a bunch of them men that were part of that church. They were actually listening to him on the side of the road, and they wasn't saying nothing. These church people, these men of the church. So they were like, the IUIC was kind of getting the message across. And I don't know if it was one of the people in the audience, one of the Christians, which are Israelites, mentioned Galatians 3, or one of the members of IUIC, the speaker or whatever, mentioned Galatians 3, the first 2-3 verses. So the guy that's a Christian Said, what does that mean? And because they, because they said IUIC pushes, you got to keep the law, you got to keep the law, you got to keep the law. As soon as you wake up to Israel, you got to keep the law. Every last one of them. Over 600 laws. So I believe it was one of the Christian brothers that pulled out Galatians 3. And it was either Captain Isaac or Captain Joel that said, oh, that's talking about animal sacrifices. And when he said that, I said, wrong answer, wrong response. All those dudes scattered. Remember, we're fishermen, right? If you got the line in there or the net in there, you want the fish to gather so you can pull the many fish up. But if you make a lot of noise, you yell, you throw things, the fishes are gathering, but then they spooked and they go on their way. So that's what I saw. I said, them were fishes. You guys had the rod out, or you had the net out, and you had gathered a lot of fish, but you troubled the waters and they all scattered. If somebody knows what that video is, please send it to me. This was maybe 2 years ago. They were doing a church blitz. And they said that's talking about animal sacrifice. Well, anyway, let's go to that. Galatians 3. So Colossians 2 verse 16 and Galatians chapter 3, pretty much Paul said the same thing. Because you had Israelites that were raised up as being born as Israelites, circumcised on the 8th day, so forth, becoming a man at the age of 12, coming up under the covenant. Paul told them, look, you got to keep them laws. But these people coming in from I keep repeating myself to bring it home, coming out of that world into the world of Israel, you can't just dump 600 plus laws on them. So even Peter in Acts 15, when Peter and James, they said, well, don't eat anything that die of itself. I believe they said that the blood, which the Jehovah's Witnesses say that's talking about, don't have blood transfusions. That's not talking about that, although you don't supposed to have blood transfusions. But they'll say, oh, that's talking about blood No, it's talking about you got to drain the blood out the animal. And also adultery. That's a sin. There were certain sins unto death. It says, oh, foolish Galatians. This is Paul speaking. Now you got here Romans 4:1. Okay, that's a good precept. Get down, blue letter. That's a good precept, which I'm not going to go into, but you can read it yourself. Romans 4 from the first verse. It says, matter of fact, let me do this. O foolish Galatians, he said to them Israelites coming out of the Gentile state of mind, he called them a bunch of fools. He said, who have bewitched you, beguiled, bewitched, that ye should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Yahushua HaMashiach hath been evidently set forth, crucified among you. So some of them people that were there saw, they were in the audience. That was a big audience, a big number of people. It wasn't like 5 people watching Yahushua. There's a lot of people there. It's a big event. It said, this only what I learn of you, receive ye the Spirit by the works of the law. What are the works of the law? The whole law. Keeping the Sabbath, new moon, high holy days. Thou shalt not commit adultery, dietary law, moral law, civil law, or by the hearing of faith. So you had these Israelites in Galatia that knew that they were Israelites saying, no, you got to keep all them laws. That's what the righteous scribes and Pharisees in Acts 15 said, oh, you ain't going to make it in the kingdom if you're not circumcised. So they had to call a council. So it says in the second verse, this only would I learn of you, receive ye the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith. When you came into this thing, you didn't believe in this because the guy started saying, well, you wear fringes and on Saturday. No, you received it because you believed it. And we don't expect anybody to come into this thing and just keep the laws. Just read all the laws and keep them perfectly. No, you got to grow in this thing. It says, are ye so foolish, having begun in the Spirit? What does it mean, having begun in the Spirit? Meaning you were led into this thing by the Spirit. Are ye now made perfect by the law? And even the Apostle Paul said, as far as keeping the law, a Pharisee. He said, but I count all things dung to receive Yahushua. And he did say, oh, wretched man that I am. He didn't say, look, I'm going to be saved because I kept the laws. Now, when you go to Philippians, I believe it's Philippians 3, he said, if you, in not too many words, if you want to have a contest on who keeps the law more perfectly and understand the law more perfectly, he said, I'm a Pharisee. I'll beat you in the law. Matter of fact, I may even go to that. And so, are ye so foolish, having begun in the Spirit? Are ye now made perfect by the law? No, because you are, if you commit James 2, I believe it's 13, either 10 or 13. If you break, I believe it's 10. If you break one law, you're guilty of all. Have ye suffered so many things in vain? If it yet be vain, he therefore that minister unto you the Spirit, which started with Yahushua, and worketh miracles among you, doeth he it by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? By the hearing of faith. Even as Abraham believed the Most High, faith, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Now, what does righteousness mean? It means to keep the laws. But faith becomes before the laws. Once you're into this faith and you come into this thing, you got guys that are going to come around in the audience, and they're not going to, they're not going to grow a beard. But eventually, they'll start growing a beard. If they want to be in the camp, you might say, well, look, you got to grow a beard. There's one brother, the newest brother in the camp, he had a full head. It took him years to grow them dreadlocks. And we said, you can be in the camp, but you got to cut your hair. And then the next week he cut his hair. Well, there was a sister. I did the video on if you have dreadlocks, you're gonna burn in the lake of fire. And it was a sister, and I even did a response to the sister's comment. She said as soon as she heard that, she immediately cut her hair off. And that sister showed great faith. She didn't go to the left hand or the right hand. She said, look, let me cut these locks. And then she said that she used to be a Rastafarian. Rastafarians are totally lost. They're totally lost, man. They don't know what's going on. They still calling on Jah. I get them on the Jah thing. I'll say, who's Jah? Selassie and Jah. The one main thing I'll get on them is the Jah thing. And mess them up. So you can build them up. Right, it says, know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. Now that's when the Christians, see, we're of the faith, so we're added in. We're Abraham's children in the spirit. I don't got to read no more, but this is good chapter that you can read, and you can also read Romans 2, 3, 4, the whole book of Romans. So now let's come back over here.
Ezekiel 45:17. I like when brothers study. It lets me, that's Queens, that lets me know that we ain't wasting our time.
No, you like when brothers regurgitate. You don't like it when they study. You study is to be critical of somebody teaching you, being like the church. The Church of Berea, they studied. What you meant to say, what you were supposed to say, I like when brothers regurgitate what I taught them last week. That's just a fact. You said, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago, oh, hell is a place that you burn in forever. Your spirit burns in forever. And as soon as you said that, oh, he said it. So it must be true. Even though 5 years ago, prior to 5 years ago, you said that the lake of fire is a miracle on fire. It had nothing to do with hell.
Ezekiel, write this down. Ezekiel 45:17 is the precept for Colossians 2:16. For a quick understanding on the street.
Ezekiel 45:17. And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings.
So when Colossians says meat or drink, he's talking about meat offerings. Read.
And drink offerings.
Drink offerings is what Paul was making reference to. Go ahead.
No, he's not. No, he partially is. He said to drink, but the Sabbath and respect our high holy days. So that means we don't got to keep them. Well, that's what they say. Well, Paul is saying that to them. He said, look, you don't have to necessarily keep the Passover and so forth and the high holy days until you are rooted and grounded. You got a lot of guys that listen to us in the audience or out there, and we're talking about the Sabbath is coming up, and they might not necessarily keep Passover coming up. They might not necessarily keep the Sabbath. And we're not just going to invite people from the audience to come to the Passover. Like, General Yohani, he said, anybody, if you're black, Puerto Rican, you come to the Passover. Well, we would never do that. They let Sarnetta in the Passover. Sarnetta had no business being in the Passover. Sarnetta had no business being in the Passover because he's not an Israelite. He's an Israelite, but he don't know he's an Israelite. 1 week he's an Israelite, next week he's a Kemetic individual. So this is not for just anybody to keep the Passover. You got to learn. Now I want to go to the Passover, eat some lamb. Well, what did Sarnetta say? The first thing he said, what do you think of the Passover, brother? He said the lamb was good and the wine was good. And I guarantee you, the next day he ate a hamburger with a bun on it. He ate pizza. He didn't empty his house of leaven. He didn't honor those 7 days. He figured it was. That's why I did a video called "The Passover is Not a Lamb Dinner." So I would never let nobody off the street just come into the Passover. You got to be a solid member, rooted and grounded into this thing, be in our Passover.
In the feast.
In the feast, that's what he's talking about, the holy days. Go ahead.
And in the new moons.
And in the new moons, that's what Paul was making reference to.
And in the
Which, by the way, these guys don't even keep the new moon. They said the new moon is the full moon. And the Sabbath is Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. And all those camps teach the Friday sundown to Saturday sundown is a new moon, except for GMS and Sakari. I don't believe anybody else goes by that. They go by the Friday. They follow in the J's. The disciples of Saturnalia. They follow the god of Saturnalia, which is Satan. That's satanic Sabbath.
Sabbaths.
And in the Sabbaths.
In all solemnities of the house of Israel.
And in all solemnities of the house of Israel. He's talking about meat offerings and drink offering. Does everyone understand that?
Okay, so we're going to have meat offerings, drink offerings, sin offerings, sacrifice in the kingdom? No, we don't need that. We don't need sin offerings in the kingdom. He said, which is a shadow of things to come. Now, you know what I'm going to do? Let me try this. Let me try this. Okay, I want to go to Colossians. Let me do it this way. Let me just see what the commentators have to say. The Bible Hub. Colossians 2 and 16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in the respect of an holy day, or of the new moons, or of the Sabbath. Then the next verse says, which is the shadow of things to come. So let me just see what the commentators have to say about this. Okay, and meat and drink. Let's see what they say. Maybe they're going to say the same thing that Bishop Nate just said. Rather better and eating and drinking for the Mosaic laws about food. Leviticus 11:17. Deuteronomy 4, all forbidden drinks, little light foot notice. The prohibition of wine to the priests at special times. Well, you got to drink wine at the Passover, right? The prohibition to drink liquid from an unclean vessel, and the law of the Nazarite. Possibly the Colossians misleaders forbade wine in total, not at all on modern philanthropic principles, but as a token of, what is this? Abjuration of social life. They're talking a lot of verbal salad. And respect. Holy day, the Greek word denotes the yearly Jewish Passover, Pentecost, anoint. It says new moon, Sabbath days. The original Sabbath is a Greek plural in the form of declination, but only as it were by accident. It is a translation of the Arabic singular Shabbatah or Sabbath. It is plain from the argument that the Sabbath is here regarded not as it was prime valley, Genesis 2 verse 3, made of man, gift, friends. These guys ain't telling me nothing. Let me try another one just to see what they say. Since the law has been canceled and the angels despoiled, ritual or ascetic ordinances have no longer any meaning for those who in Christ possess the substance of which these are but the shadow. The shadow is the kingdom. So we're going to keep all these things in the kingdom. That's why I said, let no man judge you, because they were saying you got to keep this thing, you got to keep that law, you got to keep this law. Going back to Acts 15. Peter called it a yoke. Throwing the laws on them is putting a yoke on them. And I'm going to read that. They must not be intimidated by angel worshippers. Right, because they would pray. You don't pray. High priest Ariel used to pray to angels. Who are puffed up by fleshly conceit. Conceit meaning because I say it, it's so. It's true because I say it's true. He was a rat because what's this guy? Sonny Black says he was a rat. And only loosely hold the head, from whom the body draws out its supply, since the diet elements of spirit. Okay, so where did I say I was going to go? Oh, yeah, let's go to Acts. Let's go to Acts 15. Get ready to land this plane. Acts 15. Let me go to yoke and go right to the point. Yoke. 10th verse. Now therefore, why tempt ye the Most High to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? The council at Jerusalem, or the Jerusalem council, Jerusalem council. Okay, it says, and certain men which came down from Yahweh taught the brethren, and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. Now remember, Timothy was circumcised for the Jews, sake of the Jews, but Titus was not circumcised. He chose not to be circumcised. But he was still in the fold. When therefore Paul and Barnabas had small dissension, Paul and Barnabas going to Jerusalem, apostles, elders, I'm trying to get to the point, and being brought on their way by the church, they passed through Phineas and Samaria, declaring the conversion of the Gentiles, the Israelites in the Gentile state of mind. That's what we use. That's the term we use. Coming back into the fold. The starting point was Cornelius. And they caused a great joy unto all the brethren. And when they would come to Jerusalem, they were received. So on the way to Jerusalem, they were converting Israelites to find out that they were Israelites and to accept the Messiah, that the Messiah came. They were received of the church, of the apostles and elders, and they declared all things that the Most High had done with them. But there arose certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed. So there were Pharisees that said, we believe that this is the Messiah, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. So these were Pharisees that believed in Yahweh, but they said you still got to get circumcised, you still got to keep the Sabbath, you still got to keep the new moon, you still got to keep the Passover. You got to keep all the laws. It says, and the apostles and elders came together for to consider of this matter. Remember, these were Pharisees that believed. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed. What does that mean? They believed in the Messiah. That the man that came on the scene 2,000 years ago was in fact the Messiah. And when there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto them, men, and which is a head apostle, men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago the Most High made choice among us that the Gentiles by my mouth, meaning we're talking about Cornelius, Acts 10, Acts 11, should hear the word of the gospel and believe. It started with Cornelius and his family. And the Most High, which knoweth the hearts, bear them witness, giving them the Holy Spirit, even as he did unto us. You get the Holy Spirit based upon being the elect and based upon faith, not because you kept the laws perfectly. And that's why the Apostle Paul said he broke the laws. Romans 7, he said, it wasn't me that did it, the sin that dwelleth in me. Romans 8:16 on down, I believe it's around the 20th, 21st verse. What does it say? We were made subject unto vanity, not willingly. So do we actually willfully sin? No, because the Most High programmed us to go off man's goings of the Lord. How can a man not understand his own way? And put no difference between us and them, purifying their hearts by faith. Now therefore, why tempt ye the Most High to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither, and these he's talking about them scribes and Pharisees that said that. He said, look, you're putting a yoke on their neck, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear. But we believe that through the grace of Yahweh, the Lord, the word there is kairos, which is Greek for superior, Yahushai HaMashiach, we shall be saved or delivered, saved meaning destruction of America, even as they. And all the multitude kept silence and gave audience to Barnabas and Paul, declaring what miracles and wonders the Most High had wrought among the Gentiles, Israelites, and the Gentiles of the mind by them. James' judgment. And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon, which is Peter, hath declared how the Most High at the first did visit the Gentiles, Acts 10, to take out a people for his name. So these are Israelites in a Gentile state of mind that will call themselves under heathenistic names, have tattoos, tribal marks, not circumcised, no beard, bald-headed. And they were into Moism too. Paul spoke about that. He said, if you're a Moism, you can be delivered too. So it says now when he quoted Amos 9 verses 11 verses 12, which had nothing to do with the fulfillment. Amos 9 was not the fulfillment of Cornelius accepting the gospel and the Gentiles accepted the gospel. Now you got scholars that said he read that out of Septuagint. Well, how in the hell did he read out of the Septuagint when James didn't speak Greek? Unless you have evidence that he spoke Greek. Remember, the apostles were unlearned men. The Apostle Paul was a learned man. He came up under a professional tutor, Gamaliel, which his father hired this tutor to train him. Galatians 4, the first couple of verses. You come up under tutors. Paul came up under tutors. So Paul was a master of the law. He knew the law. He said, look, I know the law more than you Pharisees. Dude, you all of y'all. I said, I'm a Pharisee. My father's a Pharisee. Did he turn in his Pharisee card? No. He was still a Pharisee. He was a Roman, And he used that, and he was a Pharisee, and he used that against the Sadducees. But anyway, in closing, that's not talking about what Bishop Nate is talking about. It's talking about the laws in general. So what say you? I'm going to say shalom. On to the next one. Shalom.